Imagine walking through a busy market in 1800s England. You see vegetables, bread and fabric for sale. But wait, there's also a woman standing on the auction block with a rope around her neck. She's being sold like cattle. This actually happened, and the reason will shock you. Victorian men sold their wives because divorce was nearly impossible to get. Only the super rich could afford it. A legal divorce cost around £3,000 back then. That's like spending $300,000 today. Think about it this way. Imagine you wanted to end your marriage today, but the only way to do it legally would cost you more than a house. Most people simply couldn't afford it, so they had to find another way out. The church controlled marriage laws in Victorian England. They believed marriage was forever, regardless of the circumstances. Even if a husband beats his wife daily, even if she cheated on him, even if they hated each other completely. The law said they had to stay married until death. Poor working people felt trapped in bad marriages. They couldn't get help from lawyers or courts. Those things were only for wealthy gentlemen with titles and land. Regular folks had to solve their problems themselves. Wife selling became their unofficial divorce system. It sounds crazy to us now, but back then, it made perfect sense to desperate people. The husband would lead his wife to market with a rope. This rope symbolized that she was his property to sell. People gathered around to watch and bid. Sometimes the wife's lover would be there to buy her. Other times, a stranger might offer the highest price. The sale usually included her clothes and personal items too. After the sale, everyone believed the marriage was over. The woman could start fresh with her new owner. The husband got some money and his freedom back. It wasn't legal, but most people accepted it as real. The community treated these sales seriously. They wrote up papers like real contracts. Witnesses signed their names to make it official. Local newspapers even reported on some sales like regular business news. Can you imagine living in a time when selling your spouse seemed like the only escape from misery? Victorian women became their husband's property when they married. They couldn't own land, keep their wages, or even have custody of children. This made wife selling seem almost normal to people back then. Let me give you a modern comparison. Imagine if getting married today meant giving up your bank account. Your paycheck would go straight to your spouse. You couldn't buy anything without asking permission first. You'd have fewer rights than a teenager. That's exactly how Victorian wives lived. The law called this coverture. It meant a married woman didn't legally exist anymore. Her husband controlled everything she owned before marriage. He could sell her jewelry, spend her inheritance, or rent out her property. She had no say in any of it. If a couple had children, they belonged completely to the father. A mother couldn't make decisions about their education or medical care. If the marriage ended badly, she might never see her kids again. Fathers had total custody rights back then. Women couldn't vote, serve on juries, or sign contracts. They couldn't even testify against their husbands in court. Society treated them like children who needed constant supervision. Many smart, capable women felt completely powerless in their own lives. Wife selling gave women a weird kind of freedom they couldn't get anywhere else. At least they could choose who bought them. Some women actually asked their husbands to sell them. They preferred taking their chances with a stranger over staying in a horrible marriage. The rope around her neck during the sale had special meaning. It showed that ownership was being transferred from one man to another, like selling a horse or cow at auction. This sounds terrible to us now, but it was normal thinking back then. Some women even helped plan their own sales. They would arrange for a lover or friend to place the winning bid. This way, they could escape to someone who treated them better. It was their only path to a new life. Does it surprise you that some women actually wanted to be sold rather than stay married? Surprisingly, many people thought wife selling was perfectly fine. Even judges, police, and church leaders often looked the other way. Some communities treated these sales like normal business deals. Think about how your neighborhood handles garage sales today. People advertise them, neighbors come to browse, and nobody questions it. Wife sales work similarly in many Victorian towns. Word spread, crowds gathered, and life went on afterward like nothing unusual had happened. Newspapers regularly reported on wife sales without criticism. They described them like livestock auctions or property transfers. John Smith sold his wife, Mary, for £5 yesterday at the local market. These reports were matter of fact, not scandalized. Local magistrates rarely punished anyone for wife selling. They knew poor people had no other options for ending bad marriages. Arresting desperate husbands and wives wouldn't solve the real problem. It would just fill up the jails with people who weren't really criminals. Some sales happened right outside courthouses and police stations. The authorities could see everything happening, but chose to ignore it. They understood that regular folks needed some way to escape impossible situations. Church leaders had mixed feelings about the practice. Officially, they disapproved because marriage was supposed to be sacred, but privately, many priests knew that some marriages were truly hopeless. They preferred quiet sales to loud domestic violence that disturbed whole neighborhoods. Even wealthy people sometimes found wife selling amusing rather than shocking. They would come to watch sales like entertainment. Rich folks enjoyed feeling superior to the crude working class. But they also understood why desperate people did desperate things. The sales followed unwritten rules that everyone understood. The husband had to lead his wife to market himself. She had to wear the rope willingly. Both parties had to agree to the sale. If anyone broke these rules, the community might reject the whole thing. Most sold wives were treated well by their buyers. The community would shame any man who mistreated a woman he'd purchased. Social pressure kept most buyers honest and respectful. Why do you think society accepted this practice instead of changing the unfair marriage laws? Wife selling slowly died out as Victorian society modernized. New divorce laws gave people legal ways to end marriages. Women gained more rights, and social attitudes changed dramatically. Here's a comparison that might help you understand. Imagine if getting a driver's license required a year-long process and cost thousands of dollars. People might start driving without a license out of necessity. But once the system became easier and cheaper, illegal driving would mostly disappear. That's what happened with wife selling. The Matrimonial Causes Act of 1857 was a game-changer. For the first time, regular people could get divorced without going to Parliament. The process was still expensive and difficult, but at least it existed. Poor people finally had hope for legal escape from bad marriages. Women's rights movements grew stronger throughout the 1800s. Activists demanded property rights, voting rights, and better treatment under marriage laws. Their hard work slowly changed how society viewed women's roles and freedoms. Education became more common for both men and women. Literate people learned about their legal rights and options. They discovered that wife selling wasn't actually legal or necessary. Knowledge helped kill the practice more than any law could. Railroad networks and newspapers spread new ideas quickly across England. Stories about women's rights and legal reforms reached small towns that had been isolated before. People learned that the rest of the world was changing around them. The last recorded wife sale happened in 1913, but most stopped much earlier. By the 1870s, they were becoming rare and controversial. Younger generations found the whole idea embarrassing, and old-fashioned police and courts started cracking down harder on wife sales in the late 1800s. What had once been ignored was now prosecuted as fraud or assault. The legal system finally caught up with social changes. Better economic opportunities helped too. When people could earn decent wages and afford lawyers, they chose legal solutions over desperate measures. Prosperity gave families more options for solving their problems. Can you imagine explaining to your great-great-grandchildren why people once thought selling family members made sense? Victorian men sold their wives because divorce was impossible. Women had no rights, society accepted it, and better alternatives didn't exist yet. This shocking practice shows how far we've come in treating people equally. What seemed normal 200 years ago would horrify us today. It reminds us that social progress happens slowly but surely, through changing laws, education, and shifting attitudes about human dignity and rights. What did you think about this shocking piece of history? Leave a comment below with your thoughts. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more surprising historical facts.